Hey everybody, welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today I have James Fitzgerald, and we're going to go deep. He is one of the leaders in the fitness coaching profession. But here's what's very interesting. We go deep into the psychology and the philosophy of fitness. And we actually break it down into two things, patterns and paces. This is really powerful. Patterns being the resistance training, the weights that we're used to, usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the paces being some sort of aerobic, could even be walking. But here's the key. You're going to go deep with James and I into the idea of longevity in life and vitality. And this is not just a fluffy podcast about what's the next newest best fitness thing. No, this is about why this is essential in our lives and how to reverse some of the entropy that is going to naturally happen in our lives. Bottom line is fitness is free and you do it for yourself. And that's the essence of this conversation. Hey, we go deep, we go long, we go hard. Enjoy this one and keep subscribing and leaving us reviews. I'm really excited to go deep here with James. Glad to be here. Ready, hit it. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today, I have James Fitzgerald. Okay, this guy is one of the leaders in the coaching profession on fitness. And let me tell you, there's a lot of people out there that play in this game, but he is one of the best, if not the best. And in 2007, he had the rare honor to be called the fittest man on earth. And that was by winning the inaugural CrossFit Games. So James, first off, thanks for wearing the colors. Glad to be here. Thanks for being on the show, brother.
Yeah, of course. It's a great shirt. It fits well.
Good. How's the quality? Does it feel good, the quality?
It's nice. It's nice. I'm glad you asked. I do care about the quality of the t-shirt. It's a little long for me. I think there's some options that you can get that are a little shorter, but you asked, so I'm being a little picky.
I like it.
But it fits me nice. Thank you.
No, awesome. Hey, we're gonna dive into your past and that, being the fittest man on earth, winning the inaugural games of CrossFit. That, I want to dive into, but not right away, because I've got a question for you. How come you can't be an asshole when you play hockey?
Well, you actually used to be. I'm not sure if you're digging up something in the past that I may once have said, but I used to train assholes, but their job was to be an asshole.
Okay.
The game has changed. You could actually, and I would say asshole meaning probably to the other team or to the opposite fans.
Right.
Not to your teammates or to the culture of the game. Yeah, so you could be one. You could have been one. But I'm not sure if you're just setting me up for the classic teamwork trope. But yeah, it's really tough to do that today, just based upon a host of factors of the speed of the game and the overall goal of it, as well as that the culture that's so historical inside of it, especially on the professional level. You just can't do it anymore. You won't survive. So,
yeah. So, I was just seeing if I could get a laugh from you, because I know that you actually coach, not only world-class hockey players, but people all over the world and many different people.
yeah.
But the word that hit my mind was enforcer, right? Wasn't that and that's an actual role that a hockey player has. I mean, you hire for that. You look for the person who's going to be that enforcer, right?
Yeah. So let me clarify. I've been out of coaching that particular group for 10 years. I did probably, let's just classify hockey players for probably 15 years. But as I mentioned, that used to be, it was an unspoken rule, or it was an unspoken position, or an unspoken character that you needed to have on your team. For numerous reasons, but that person generally would protect and uphold the culture that needed to be required inside of the game of honesty and integrity and
beautiful
and these deep pieces that were built into the culture of the sport. And so if you decided you wanted to go outside of those lines and, to your language, be an asshole against one of the players on another team, you had quote unquote these particular players, and you weren't allowed to call them enforcers, but
Right.
they would go on the ice and teach you a lesson so that hopefully you would never make that mistake again. Now, the unfortunate thing, in my opinion, I'm a bit more of a purist with regards to ice hockey, and I think that has really significantly changed the game. And so now you have just a different style because they've kind of removed that characteristic, let's call it, of the enforcer.
Yeah, I love that. I actually didn't plan to go into hockey right away, but I know you're Canadian. We're gonna get background on what you really do and are currently doing. I was thinking though, I just had to laugh because it's the old acronym that says I went to a fight and a hockey game broke out, right?
Yeah.
In the old days.
Yeah, for sure. And so just to give your listeners an idea, I was pretty much raised up and practiced the sport in that quote unquote era. I was never the enforcer. I always had, this, implicit enforcer on my team.
Yes.
So I was the person that was, setting up plays or creating some energy to the game. And, but these people were, my wingers, as well as individuals that protected me from the stupid stuff.
So you were the center? Is that what you were?
Well, I did play center. And now you don't necessarily need to play center to be that role, but that's generally where I landed because I had great capacity, but not unbelievable skill. So I could be in a lot of places and play penalty kill, not often power play, but play penalty kill and play my regular shift, and then just basically be there every shift. So yeah.
What size are you?
I'm currently 5'9", 165 pounds.
Nice.
And when I played probably at my highest level, for what you would know, like the high school level, I was probably 5'9", 155, let's say 160 pounds.
Yeah, I like to say 165 pounds of tempered steel and sex appeal, right?
Well, I probably had the steelness characteristic based upon the love of training. With regards to the sex appeal, I don't think I had much of that whatsoever.
Well, it's not what we say; it's what the other person says, right? When it gets.
Well, that's right. I did find a wonderful partner, and been with her for over 20 years now. So I guess
there you go. You must have it. You must have it in spades, brother.
Yeah.
That must be good. Hey, listen. So the audience knows. Give me a little bit about your background and what you're currently doing, and then we're going to dive in because I am super excited to pick your brain on fitness, and not just fitness physically, but mentally, the whole gamut. So
I look forward to that too. And the intentions of fitness and the whole concept and the future and stuff. I'd really like to, if I was to back up and repeat the answer to your question, you started offline. That's probably where I enjoy that. So I was, to give a little bit more of that background, I was born in Northern Canada and grew up loving sports and played just pretty much was this young athlete, right? The classic young athlete in a small community in a northern city in Canada. So you can just put all the things together based upon that and the possible characteristics and things that you build in a person based upon those kind of things. And I, after I finished high school, I had an injury in soccer, which made me do some rehab and then fall in love with fitness from that rehab. And so it was at that period of time where, I wanted to learn more about it. So I went to university and learned more about it, and then got out and started practicing it in the late 90s. I was practicing mid 90s, but when I graduated in the late 90s, I was like free from that academic burden at the time.
Yep.
And just set my path on helping people with regards to fitness coaching. And it's a long but fun, enjoyable story of helping a ton of people and building businesses and learning about the whole fitness concept. And where that finds me today, I'm the lead educator for our company, which is called OPEX Fitness. And our goal is to raise the value of fitness coaching around the globe. And we do that by teaching and educating adults, really the principles around fitness. So.
And when you say adults, you mean fitness coaches, right? You're focused on the coaches.
Well, I
Both.
classify that because they're not 12-year-olds, and we're
Right.
not, we don't have education in public or private schools. So yeah, these are generally people that are just getting into, post high school academia, or, are just kind of, wandering out there, trying to figure out if something like this might be of interest to them.
I can't wait to explore what you've seen in your life, because I know in my experience as not a coach, but a participant, a player who has been coached a lot and currently still am by fitness coaches, the journey of it. But let's go right to what you said, the future of fitness. So where's the cutting edge, right? Where are we right now and where are we going?
Yeah, well, I generally pretense this commentary with humans are horrible at predictions. So I'll pretense that. Secondly, my authority or my position in the fitness universe and my experience is still only two eyes that give to the commentary I'll make on what I predict for future, right? So, because we always have to remember what our ecosystem is and who we're speaking to and where we come from,
Yeah.
So I should start with those things. But the future for fitness, in my opinion, is not, because it would be lengthy to go through the pluses and the minuses and the unknowns of the whole thing. The majority of my senses right away, it doesn't look too positive.
Wow.
In numerous different ways. So
that's surprising to me. I'm glad you're going that direction, because you just surprised me. And right now my brain is going, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who's in the industry, is helping people, and yet it seems like you have some insights. So
yeah, well, of course, in order to make that statement, I never just unfold it if I'm not willing to go into, it's a hard claim, right? Because just imagine I'm the founder of a fitness education company that charges $5,000 for 6 months of learning for individuals about fitness principles. Right. And so what you hear come out of my mouth of, it doesn't look too good in the future, of course, that can be seen as well, that's interesting, but, to make everyone feel okay, it's not like I'm not doing anything about it, but I'm certainly not going to be stuck in a fantasy land.
Yeah.
And that's the important aspect of why in majority of thought, I really do believe it's not going in a positive direction. And there's just too many predictions or factors over the past 20 years, right? In order to create predictions based upon Wolff's Law and everything's, you look at experience, you look at trends, you look at culture, you look at who's, where it is, and, who makes money off it. That is a big part to play with the whole concept. And, really fitness over a period of time has been commoditized, and there's been numerous opportunities where fitness could have, if it's its own thing, could have rose up during these really rough periods and be seen as something we could all wrap our hands around, and especially the past couple of years as an example.
Yeah. Exactly.
But fitness as a concept failed horribly numerous times to kind of come out on the other side with this massive appreciation of what daily physical expression can do for people, what daily physical challenges physically and psychologically can do for people. And so that partnered up with what I like to call this fantasy land of intentions. Depending upon your view, a lot of people see fitness as so virtuous because they wrap the performance paradigm,
okay,
i.e. the sport concept, inside of it, or they wrap the anti-disease, it'll make everyone less fat language inside of it.
Okay.
And my whole point being is that both of those seemingly positive, virtuous intentions will not end well. So if most people are doing it for number one, attention, or number two, so that they don't get more fat,
yeah,
it will eventually end up faltering. And there's no indication to show, John, in like percentages that there's a whole ton of more conscious people being born into those notions that are different than that. I'll be brief to finish on that point, because I could be far more eloquent but lengthy in terms of why I predict it doesn't look good for the future. Just envision that 4 or 5-year-old, right? The avatar 4 or 5-year-old, right? What are they given as options for this stepwise progression of knowledge towards wisdom, of self-nourishment, and lifestyle daily practices that they can freely participate in? Yeah. So they have this innate thing that they're born with, right? And there's very small percentages of people that don't have the ability. And by all means, we'll make lots of effort to ensure those individuals can experience those things, either with cognitive dysfunction or physical dysfunction. But there's a massive amount of individuals who are not, quote unquote, taught, nor given the power of the understanding of this free thing that I believe everyone has. So the reason why I make mention of that, so people could think about that 4-year-old metaphorical hypothesis, is that the other options are really poor. The other options are really poor. And that needs to be, of course, stretched out. But because I can just hear all the moms saying, well, my kid's involved in minor soccer, or, they have recess, 15 minutes twice a week. Like, I can just hear but there's these other things. Those other options are not good options. For the other previous reasons that I mentioned, it's either a sport model or it's a rehab model. And that's not going to get people to the deepest intentions of why we should be doing fitness.
So I'm glad you brought up intention, right? Because what motivates somebody, right? It's hopefully the intention. I also love that you went from knowledge to wisdom. Let's go to the wisdom side, because there's a bunch of knowledge out there, right? And to me, knowledge is just data, facts, information, lots of that. I also like to add in between the two, understanding, which I know you are an expert on, right? So it's one thing to have knowledge of fitness. It's a whole nother thing to understand it in a way you can teach others, right? And then the wisdom, I actually ask you, how do you define wisdom in fitness?
Yeah, in the fitness world, well, I'll also retort a little bit on my knowledge to wisdom statement. Sure. Is that I assume in my language that there is an understanding when you move to wisdom. You can't be wise without awareness.
Perfect.
So I just made that assumption. We're just being semantics here with our words, but it's important that I clarify that. In fitness, it's truly autonomy. It's the ability for an individual to navigate this entire experience that they have one time ever to experience in the physical manner, in my belief anyways. Yep. And they have, on averages, 80 years. So they have many, many, many opportunities to physically express themselves.
Yep.
But wisdom entails, you just want to think of it in layman terms, you are wise to the concept of fitness. Anyone who's wise to the concept of fitness recognizes that it's fairly simple, it's innate. So, and the intention should be that you do it because it's for you and because you're capable of doing it. And that would, if you continually say in your head without even the right language to it, you know what, why do you work out? I work out because I'm capable and because it's for me. That's what I would consider a wise person inside of fitness. And the steps to get there is ridiculously arduous, but I truly believe that if more people in all the parties, all the institutions involved, all the really the gated institutions, but all the institutions that are involved, all the education, all the knowledge purveyors, if everyone doesn't get on board with that sooner than later, I I don't know. I just think more pessimistically around what it's going to turn. It'll just turn into a constant dependency model of no one taking responsibility to get to wisdom for fitness.
Love it. Let's go into the earlier comment a little deeper, because I think that's where we're hitting. Is you said the future doesn't look, what were your exact words? Not great, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what did you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. What's involved a little bit is, what is the real impact? And what is success? Those words have to be included in that conversation. Like, what is impact and what is success? And so I land on bad because it's basically, it's like a sliding scale difference between good or bad. So if you wanted to put it into mathematical, terminology, there's predictions on general health measures and obesity rates, let's just say in America. And I can tell you, in case no one's aware, that's not diminishing. Those numbers are not like consistently every year we're sharpening up and we're getting better. And there's a host of reasons why that's the case, but that would be the example. So it's not pointing towards more good, it's pointing towards more bad. And I'm only using, I wouldn't say it's unfair, but I'm only using the obesity rates as a concept around that. But that's a reflection, right, of culture and society and like general well-being and who's in the whole game, who's actually involved in the whole game, et cetera. So,
well, I think,
that's what I mean by bad. I see, and another reason why I think it would be called bad, because it's more fantastical. What I mean by that is that the future holds, if you're not aware with, what the concepts of the metaverse is going to be and et cetera, it will all look like things are successful. That's why it's also quote unquote bad, because people think that they're becoming more resilient and these elite levels of fitness because they work out at home on a screen connected to a computer. Right. So people can read between the lines of what I'm saying there, right? It's only $59 a month for a Peloton bike, just in case anyone's interested. But see how that looks like a trend. It's like a positive direction. We have accessibility to all. No, that's actually fantasy. That's fantasy in terms of like what the truest definition is. So that's another reason why I think it's bad. More and more people really think we're all getting more healthy and we're all moving towards this like virtuous concept of physical freedom. And so that's why I land on bad in the explanation.
Makes sense. Now, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. What's some stats? I'm glad you brought up obesity, because you could have lots of different stats, but and the other thing is, I know we have trends, we have the stats on that. In America, it is not looking good. And here you can also do the quality or just your own check, walk through an airport and just look around, look at an airplane, look at a supermarket. I mean, it's scary to see. But what's the stats?
Yeah, besides the obesity one, I think it's more indicative of things by looking at the first time, especially in North America, the first time in like a really long period of time of measurement where we're not living as long.
Yeah, the age.
So, and that, right, I mean, that in today's day and age with information technology and medicine, and I mean, it's disgusting actually that would happen. But there's also these other cofactors I would ask people that I would not be able to be technically wise enough to give you exact data on, but I know it to be true, meaning that people are starting families later in life. There's actually less children being born, especially in USA. Those stats are very clear. You have especially, and let's go into the cognitive psychological route. Take a real good look into the data on general well-being or feelings of contentment versus happiness, right? And listen, you'll go down a deep rabbit hole into deaths of despair, into economic class differences and how people perceive what their future possibilities are. Like all of these things are not moving in a, let's call it an unbelievable positive direction. So there, I didn't give you hard data, but it will be enough for anyone listening in to say, listen, we all get it. You may not need to have those exact percentages, but things are not going in the right direction for that.
Okay, great.
Which ironically, John, ironically, at a point where there's never been more information available.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to figure out how do we reverse that from your side, right?
Yeah,
that's what
fair.
I really wanted, because you made the point very clearly. You know, what's interesting too, and I'll just stamp it, is I do a lot of work with Mayo here in the United States, and I was with their head of all regenerative medicine. And recently he and I were having this discussion about not just age, but quality of life in the older age. And that's where I think we're leading this to, is because not only is the age decreasing, but what's decreasing faster is the quality of that life in older age. All right. So that I just want to stamp your point. I agree with you 1,000%. So what do we do about it?
Yeah, well, it's like asking, how do you fix poverty? It's fairly complex. And I don't lightly say that, but it is as challenging as a concept. But, we got to have a stab at it. I'll take two angles that I've taken before on it. First and foremost, you got to have a beacon. So you got to have a beacon of an option or something that's a solution. So along with my complaining, which, we only have 60 minutes to 90 minutes today, so that's generally something that'll at least get people's ears perked up. I could also spend 8 hours on a positive psych line of thinking in terms of like what we need to do to invoke change and raise voices and actually create, let's call it psychological mobility, which I know is near and dear to your heart for people. You got to create a beacon. So I would say that to start with a beacon of this finishing line, and it brings into point your conversation just more recently there on aging population and what to do later on in life and what to do, right? What to do.
Yep.
Well, why don't we talk about what you're capable of as a beacon? So why don't we have these implicit, indirect standards of what we want people to get to? Okay. And these are like, I call it like loosely talked about when everyone says, well, why are you doing fitness? I'm doing it for health and longevity. And then everyone stops talking, right? So stretch out, well, what does health and longevity mean? So I propose three beacons. One, cognitive resilience. So that means that in your latest days, for the whole days, so from 3 to 83, all the way to 83. And if you want to go north, that's fine, good for you. But 83 is where you're getting, most of you. You should be sharp as a tack at 83, right? We all know those grandparents or our elders who we made those, unfortunately, very low percentage of them, but we would pick those people out of a room, be like, man, that guy is still sharp as a tack. Yeah. So we can't be afraid of pushing whatever it takes to get most people there. That's the first beacon. And of course, when you go down that road, John, you know where you're going to go, right? Stress in life has to be balanced, proper nutrition. What is your vocation? What creates purpose? All these things will lead to that. Like that's in stone, that everyone knows that. Okay. Yeah. Secondly, physical function. When you are also at 83, you need to be able to do whatever the FUCK you want. And I use those words because that speaks of true resilience. That means that, listen, if I want to hike for 90 minutes, I'm going to go for a hike for 9 minutes. If I want to pick up my great-grandchild, I'm going to pick up my great-grandchild. If I slip and fall, I will catch myself and easily get up. So that is called true physical function at that age. The third one would be contentment. And I would lay it with something that's more descriptive and call it imminent contentment. That means that it's inside of you and it's inherent. It's something that we should strive for, that I would think is a higher order process beyond just happiness. So if you were to say, listen, those are the beacons, I'm hoping people can look at that and go, geez, if we reversed everything backwards and said this 3-year-old should do everything in their power to line up to those beacons, I think that would be at least some form of language that people can attach to and get excited about. Secondly, I do think, and this is my role in what I'm speaking about today and what I plan to do for the rest of my days, I believe, because it's going to take that amount of effort, is to create simplicity in this knowledge that is right in front of people. So we have made the fitness concept so ridiculously complex, it is preventing anyone from taking the first 2 steps. And we're all doing it. For some of us, we were doing it with good intentions, right? We had great intentions. We're like, oh, I've experienced this physical thing and I want to share this with you. Or, I've seen people get out of trouble psychologically and physically. I want to share that with you. See, those are all good intentions, right? But we have to even make it even simpler. Whatever you can simplify it down so that it becomes, quote unquote, free. The truest definition of freedom is something that is right in front of you that you could just grasp and take a hold of and use for your power in which what you want to do going forward. And my belief is fitness is free. There's no cost to it. The knowledge around it has been steeped in us, depending upon your beliefs, for millions of years, for how we present and what we need to do. Upright, high threshold monkeys, basically, that have the capability of doing something more than just like scratching backs. We can tie shoes, we can love, we can do these really grandiose things. And so I think we need to respect that, the physical evolutionary piece, and then recognize, listen, we don't need to do it today, and then teach everyone that it's super simple. The problem with that, John, if you're kind of putting those steps together, you're basically deconstructing the entire fitness dependency model. That's essentially what you're doing with that notion, the second notion. So I know there's some heavy pieces inside of that proposal, but you asked, and that's what I think would essentially fix the issue.
Well, James, first off, thanks for taking it up to 50,000 feet first, or 30,000 feet first, because I think that's critical. Too many people get right into the how and instead of the why, as I heard you talking here. So let me repeat back what I heard in a way that we can move forward. Love the idea of a beacon, right? And you gave us 3 beacons, but I think this is just how you approach any problem in the world, big or small, right? Is what's the goal? What are we trying to achieve? Where are we trying to go? I like to call it the high performance zone, is the gap between where you are and where you're trying to go. But if you don't know where you're trying to go, hey, what the hell? So I love the idea of a beacon. Plus, I love the metaphor of a beacon being this beacon of light, this something that you're attracted to, right? And then, so number one, awesome starting there. And I like how you broke it into 3 things. One is the continued resilience, right? And I like what you defined, and that is, if 83 currently right now, that's the age that is the average. What does it look like at 83? And can I actually be doing the things I want to do at 83? I liked sharp as a tack. That was awesome, right? And then as you get into the physical execution, I love that piece, being that depends on you. Do you want to hike? By the way, I live in Sun Valley, Idaho, so I'm up in the mountains. And I'm looking outside and I'm going, I want to hike 90 minutes. Do I want to do that at age 83? I'm not sure, but probably, and what's that going to take? But then you made it really obvious. And that was, in hospitals, we work a lot with healthcare. What is the biggest cause of most deaths? Falls, and because of not the fall itself, but what happens afterwards, that. And I like what you said, which is, wait a minute. Am I able to stop the fall, number one, in a way, that's natural as a little kid usually, and then, and resolve that. And then I like the contentment piece. That was huge, imminent contentment, right? Then what I heard you do is give us a path. And that's what I want to break up, right? So now that you defined the goals, there is a path. And I think this is true in any religion. It's true in any business. What is the path to get there? And you made 2 big points: Simplicity and freedom, right?
Yeah.
And I think, sometimes simplicity is harder, right?
Mm.
It's hard to take a complex issue like fitness and make it simple. So let's unpack that. And by the way, I know we only have 60 minutes total, but it reminds me of Winston Churchill said, and we'll probably go a little long because this is deep stuff. I love it. He said, "Hey, if you want me to give a speech and you give me 2 hours, I can do that tomorrow. If you give me 15 minutes, I'm going to need 2 weeks."
Yeah.
So with simplicity, go.
Yeah. I love that. I'm a Charles de Gaulle and Winston Churchill fan, so I
Nice.
appreciate that. And also I wanted to say that before I start on that, for what the simple practices look like to get people at least excited around the language. In most cases, and I will say, I shouldn't say that. In fitness, I really do think that going from complexity to simplicity is not hard.
Okay.
I think that, in my opinion, because I've been in it and I sold it, I think that we have made things complex because we were selling something. So it's a really ugly thing to discover about yourself, right? But hey, it is what it is. We could all grow. We're all fallible. And I've learned that about me being a representative in the fitness industry. Fitness has been made complex to make money for a very select few and to create a tremendous amount of unconscious followers.
Wow.
That's what fitness has done by making it complex. So the reason why I say that is because you said, oh, it's hard, right? Well, no, it's not.
Great.
We want to make it hard. We want to make it hard, even our thoughts, because we're selling something.
Nice.
Right. And that's anyways. So I'm still healing myself over that. It'll continue to go on, but I just want to know where I was wrong on it. And I'm going to call myself out and others that probably haven't seen that. The simple thing, is basically weights and cardio. It's the concept of strength and conditioning. It's the language, and I'm starting with those things. In our language, we call them patterns and paces.
Oh, nice.
So even from the start of that, you have to remember that any of the recommendations that I'm going to make on what's called the simple program, right? If people don't get it, then it's not simple enough, right? Not the university educated coach, not the physiologist, not the doctor. I don't give a shit about those people. Not the 28-year-old who's not going to follow it because it's not popular. I don't give a shit about you either. I'm talking about the individual that is frustrated, is confused, and sees there's too much noise. So if I say it this way, listen, patterns one day, pacing the next day, press repeat on that, never stop. At least they're like, tell me more. I'm interested in what you mean by that. Now, in my background knowledge, that's basically called strength and conditioning, weights and cardio, resistance and aerobic work. Okay. But as I begin on this, John, it's important to recognize, and I'm hoping actually, I don't see you write down notes on this one because this can go off in a deep direction. We don't need to move today. So,
by the way, hands up, no notes.
Okay, good. People need to recognize that. I just make mention of it because sometimes they're like, oh, just a second now. What do you mean by we don't need to move? We really, as a whole, we do not need to move today. Okay. So when we were hunter and gatherers, we needed to move. When we were on farms, we needed to move. In front of a MacBook with a Tesla and an elevator, you don't need to move. Okay. So just because people do move today doesn't mean it's the right movement or they need to. That's the key point, right? So, but the way that I like to open up with that is to say, listen, let's just get over it. Like, okay, we're all in agreement. We don't need to move. But like you said, James, it's innate in us. Like we have this learned process of going across land, for long periods of time. We also unbelievably can punch something and break it in two. So I don't know much, or when I take a crap or I sneeze, I do this violent contraction. Like you don't need to know much, but you should just go, holy crap, like I'm capable of doing those things. So that's what I know. I try to make it as humorous as possible to land on, but inside of that is so much beauty in it that's the real reason you need to exercise. It's because it's in us. It's in us to move, right? So that goes back to my language. Do it for you and do it because you can do it. Do you see that? Like we're capable of doing that. So that's where I land on the intentions inside of this, what's coming up, the aforementioned simple model. Okay. So the simple model would be, and I'll break it out into a week so that people can like at least extract something from it. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you do resistance. You do challenging contractions, right? Now, to lay that out, to plan it, to get more complex than that is going to be way too much for you. That shouldn't be your first question. If you're like, oh, it can't be as easy as that. You need to do a little bit more of a deep dive into why you want to make it complex, right? Mm-hmm. So it's resistance of all patterns. That's why we call it patterns.
Oh, nice.
On Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Pushing, pulling, lunging, squatting, bending, and core activities. So do all of those patterns of movement Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We can get into the niddly, little things. You can read a book and see some information as to what to do inside of that. Yeah. But just know those are resistance. Those are challenges physically, right? And those are contractions. And here's my key point on this, which differentiate from pacing. Those are unsustainable contractions. So that means that you're doing these contractions knowing full well there's gonna come an end to those contractions. Okay. So you provide resistance. Your dad can act as your resistance. Yeah. You could wrestle with someone. You can hang on a rope, like whatever. I'm just trying to come up with people's creativity to go interesting. Okay, so these are the contractions. And they need to be unsustainable, right? Yes, okay, because then that puts it into the strength resistance category, okay? The second area is pacing. This is, of course, well known, but we are more than capable of going really long distances. And all the volume that comes with that, I don't think we should stop at all the crap that people get into with, left ventricle issues or cardiomyopathy or endurance athletes, breaking their hearts or whatever. That's the wrong route to go. Instead, you should say it's observable in a whole ton of people who are later in life today that they choose to walk or hike every day for the rest of their life. There's something inside of that we can't turn our back on. And my whole point is that, yes, I'm saying for Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, it is an actually planned out pace. Okay. So I call it paces just because it rhymes with patterns. And I know you love fundamental systematics and language. So
wait a minute. How do you know I like that?
Well, I read your book and one of my mentors was from a military background and a specialist in fundamental systematics. Okay. And I'm well read on J.G. Bennett and systematics in general. So you're just speaking my language all the time with the rhyming, alliteration, and shit. People can remember it and et cetera. So patterns and paces, the paces aspect is the aerobic work. So let me put this into a real working fashion here. And as I mention it, just see as you're listening, what are all the excuses that come up in your head that say, oh, there's no way this is going to work? Because that's where you as a listener need to go. That's where you need to go for your own healing. Okay. So as I'm saying it, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're going to do all of those patterns I had mentioned of resistance. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, you're going to do long cardiovascular efforts of walking. Okay. And that pattern, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, you can press repeat on that thing 52 weeks a year for the rest of your life and get everything you need to get at a physical expression. Everything. And it doesn't need to be, and I'll argue till I'm blue in the face with anyone, it doesn't need to be more complex than that. Anything that you're going to come up with that says it's not that simple, I'm just telling you again in a different way, that's your own healing that you need to fix, right? And I could give you different, things that people would say and retort to that, but I'll just stop with that with the answer to what is the simple answer.
Nice. Really, really, really appreciate the clarity of that. And like you said, the simplicity of it. Now that has us doing something every day. Okay. Whether it's the resistance,
which is the whole notion, move every day.
There you go. Movement, right? The patterns of resistance training, and then the pacing of the cardio aerobic or, walking. Where does something, by the way, I believe in that. That's awesome. And thank you for making it simple. What just hit my mind was the concept of, let's say, yoga, or where you combine both the concept of the inner body, the outer body, the stretching with the breathing. Where does that fit in all this?
Yeah. Well, to be quick on it, yoga has been injected into our culture and has been treated really poorly. I'll start with that.
Okay.
Yoga all of a sudden seems to be some form of more than physical experience today. And it doesn't mean it's wrong, but I just want to pretense my conversation with that.
Okay.
What you're asking there, you could ask, well, what about cross-country skiing?
Exactly.
Or well, what about mixed martial arts?
Anything.
Or what about that? And I will continually have a way to fit that in for the right person based upon my initial description. So again, the person asking it should say, well, where does it fit into these two kinds of contractions? So there are people who start with yoga, and let's not call it yoga. Yeah, let's call it moving around in your living room against your own body's resistance.
Yeah.
Do you see that? So now if you're calling it that, are there positions or repetitions or certain positions you can get into that become unsustainable in resistance contractions in your living room on the floor? Most people will kind of put that together and be like, yeah, actually, so what could yoga, I called it yoga. What could that turn into? That could turn into your patterns, right? Yeah. So if you go through a classic salutation or a full, arraignment of those salutations, my argument would be you're not getting enough tension in a number of them, but you do go through all the patterns, right? Bending, you can just think of it, squatting, bending, lunging, core, pushing, and pulling, right? It's all in that like simple salutation or different kinds of movements. Yep. The one thing that I would not say yoga could act as a form of like resistance over time is our biggest issue as humans. We adapt. So if you're going to adapt to it over time, yoga is going to become no effect. That doesn't make it wrong, but it becomes no effect. But this is where it helps me land on what yoga used to be. Yoga used to be an opportunity for people to be at peace, to listen inside and to go deep inside based upon breath and this initial motion that ironically used to be taught in all yoga classes. First of all, was sit still, observe your thoughts. Yeah. Right now, how many yoga classes are starting everyone out with that today? Now it's heat and repetitions and like wearing certain pants and make sure you hashtag it. Like you see all the intentions, right. As I said, I shouldn't be going so hard on that, but all the intentions just went wrong. So hopefully I answered your question, but you could use that as a template to answer all the questions, right? Around what are we going to put into there? What is the intentions of it? And what kind of contractions are there? Right. And then you may be able to see it land in some certain areas for how you can create that practice. And then of course it provides some principle as well, right? Like you heard me saying there, yoga doesn't have, will not elicit enough tension over time, right? So then you're going to figure it out. So maybe someone who's just starting, maybe one Monday, Wednesday, Friday, yoga is an extremely challenging resistance for them, right? But what happens to humans over time? We adapt. So what are they going to need to do? Well, this is hopefully the next stage, right? You're like, oh, I did remember these principles. I now need to find more challenging bending, more challenging squatting, more challenging lunging. You see that? So that they can still use the Monday, Wednesday, Friday format, but they're adapting and they're growing and now they can challenge themselves. And if you think about that really hard, you will never accomplish enough experiences in your experienced life. Yeah. Like there's so much creativity and opportunity inside of that for adaptation and learning. Someone will never get to it. So just in case everyone's like, oh my God, I'm going to get bored. It's like, man, you haven't even stepped into the possible creativity that you can have in all those movements.
So let's go with creativity. I love this. And how can you put your two concepts of patterns and paces in a creative space where I'm thinking like skate skiing. I'm thinking like I like to get outdoors. I like to do physical things that are fun, skiing
Yeah.
and biking, that kind of stuff. So where do you fit that into your way you coach?
Yeah. Well, really, I don't care about emotions, to be completely honest. And I have to approach it that way. So I don't care if people don't find it fun. If you're trying to make fitness fun, you're going in it with the wrong intentions. So what generally ends up happening then is that we fall hook, line, and sinker to the entertainment or attention economy basis intentions inside of fitness.
Okay.
So I always start with that. I really don't care about your feelings. I like to look at some truths in terms of like what the real reason why
Hey,
you're
how does
doing
that
it.
work with a client when you start off with, I really don't care about your feelings?
Well, we don't start exactly with those words, but
No, I
they
like
eventually
it.
recognize it after 60 minutes.
Yeah, I like it. See, you've earned the right to say that now. It's awesome. I love it. Go
Well,
for
maybe
it.
in 5 minutes, but
Yeah.
no, I'm being honest. It was probably within 60 minutes. I need
Yeah.
to get them to the point of understanding is like, listen, I need to change your thinking. Fitness is not supposed to be there for fun, right? And then I'll try to give them other examples, right?
Yeah.
If you went after something for fun all the time, where does that end up, right? And so then they start thinking, yeah, I guess, it can't only be fun. It's like, no, it doesn't mean you're not going to enjoy it, but it can't only be for fun. So I start with that, with your example of, how about this and how about this? I would still ask you to, though, think hard about what it is. It's locomotion across land. So with that paces, that covers a tremendous amount of area. I just use the simple idea, remember, of walking and locomotion, because people, as I said, whenever people have problems with like why it wouldn't go ahead, it's always their thing to fix. So let's just say, and I'm not going to say you said it, but let's just say someone's like, well, I want to play soccer on Sunday. And I think that's my form of it. Well, then I would need to say, well, what are your intentions of playing soccer? And if I go deep down inside of it, and what comes out the other end is really like just gathering with their friends, having fun, running around on grass, well then, hey, we're good, right? But a lot of times we get to the point where they're doing it because it keeps my weight down. I'm going to share it with friends to show that I was out on a Sunday playing soccer and I still got it. Like, these are all poor intentions. Do you see that can't then be baked into why you're doing the soccer to act as that locomotion on Sunday? So that's why I try to make it like start with as simple as premise as possible. And then of course it gets colored, but we can't lose sight of the intentions of those principles. And of course, I'll say it again in a fourth different way. Whenever you come up with a reason as to why that's not the right way, I'm going to challenge you and say that you've got some things to work on your intentions of fitness, as to why you're doing it.
I call those limiting beliefs, by the way. You're
Yep,
holding
that's right.
something
You do.
inside
You do.
yourself. Yeah. Hey,
Yes.
we could go really deep on some other areas here, but I wanted to at least touch on them. And that is, in the concept of fitness, what's going through my mind is it's not just the physical exercise that we've talked about, right? There's so many other elements that you could lump into fitness, whether it's the sleep, nutrition, so many things, right? Where do you fit? Where should the audience be thinking, okay, I'm in the patterns and paces. You got me sold on that.
Mm.
Where do we next want to focus? Yeah.
Well, you bring up an interesting point that it wasn't the purpose of you asking the question, but I just want to make mention that I think about it a lot, is always that coach's mind philosophical dilemma of like, what's most important in the whole picture. So I just want to make mention that I pulled that out of your question, and I appreciate it, because I do consistently think about that. But as you know, thus far, even though we're not even at really 60 minutes, you probably know I'm going to take the basic route for all the other things. Okay. So it's not dissimilar in what we call behavior and nutrition. And we just lump those into those language so that it allows coaches to know what their tools are. We teach behavior, we teach exercise, we teach nutrition. Your question would be, and how I'm hearing it, what do you do inside of behavior and nutrition? It's the exact same method approach, which is you do it because it's for you and you do it because you can. And that's the same way in thinking in a very reductionist terms of your thoughts and your actions and understanding and awareness of your perceptions and understanding how they lead to your behaviors, how it could be a feedback loop and how all those things work. It's the same thing with what you put in your mouth, right? It can act as some form of assessment all the time. Your litmus is your energy level, your sleep, all the other things, which can be a feedback loop to upgrade it. Do you see? It's the exact same processes in all three areas, which you would appreciate, I would assume, based upon it trying to be this system that people could just go into and just dig their teeth into, and how they're going to get some positive benefits from it. But I would stop there and say things like that. If people are interested, like to lick their chops a little bit more about, what are some of those basics? We really, let's just say, dig into getting people heightened in the awareness of what the basics are. So not necessarily landing right away in the first session with, exactly what the prescription is, just like we don't land in that prescription right away for movement. We give them this concept of what is your awareness of what the basics are, i.e., let's go back to the patterns and paces. That's how we talk to clients about it. We say, like, what is your definition of resistance and aerobic work? What's your history? What's your past? Where do you come from? What brought you to this point, right? So it's the same thing in nutrition and behavior. And then we just go down these routes of like, what's going to be involved in those lifestyle class, behavior practices and nutrition practices.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing you talk about is what you have in OPEX, right? And how you teach people.
Coaches. Teach coaches to use that language to get across to a client, the simplicity of the basics.
Now let's switch to business real quick, because I'm actually excited to hear about, how you created this business. It's such a huge opportunity. And is it online? Is it coursework? Give me an idea. If I were to sign up for this, what would it look like?
Yeah, it's about 6 months of online work that you have to do to come out with what we call the coaching certificate program, which is OPEX's language of what happens at the end of the course. It's not a certifying body. It's basically just the education of principles. And you would finish that in roughly 6 months.
And you assuming or want to have a practice that you could then start sharing that with others, right? So you're teaching you're training the trainer.
Yes, we're teaching those individuals to understand principles.
Okay.
So what they do with that, we have no control over. And as it's actually another point that I didn't hit on with the dystopic future of the fitness market. There's no regulation. Yeah. Anyone can be a trainer, anyone can be a fitness coach, and we know full well we're inside that. And there's a whole bunch of dirty background, red tape, political garbage, basically, like in all different forms of unregulated systems. So we're inside of that. So I just wanted to make mention of that, to know that, we certainly are trying to like inject other adult minds with these concepts of principles so they can spread to people. But hey, those coaches going out there in the real world have a significant amount of resistance against these basic notions that we're trying to teach people.
No, I got it. And last question on this side, and then I want to actually dive into the CrossFit, because I want to hear about it from you real quick. Your experience, right? But since we started with the future of fitness and what you're doing, how do you respond? And I kind of got a sense where you're going to go with this, but I still want to ask it to all the new, and when we say new, it's always in quotes, right? But when you think about stem cells, when you think about all the medical or enhancement ways of enhancing fitness, longevity, there's so many of those things out there that I don't even know about, that I can't even, but how do you address some of those?
Yeah, I don't address them. I can only have opinions on them.
Okay.
I see a lot of it as more nefarious than positive actions. I see a lot of it steeped with thinking they're going to find an answer to these really simple lifestyle things that people could fix, that they do have a choice in a decision of making. And of course, there could be lots of argument and conversation and, free will, determinism, choice, we can go on and on based upon that. But I think a lot of those things that look like these virtuous claims around, you just gave a couple of what these new technological advances are going to do. It's really just to create another fix in a lot of ways for a broken lifestyle. And I know I sound pretty, like a curmudgeon on that language, but it's for the short time that we have to discuss it, as well as that's my true beliefs. I think that, again, I offered a solution as to what would be the other option so people never have to have those things, right? And as I said, which I could somehow, take a lot of period of time, but prove data on it, it's a very, very, very small percentage of people who get to those end of days and actually do require some form of new age technological innovation that's going to give them a little bit more. But my argument would be, if the developmental process and the formative years, as well as all of those things that people could partake in psychological and physical potential for their whole life, they will get to that point where none of that is required. So I think that, again, all of that it looks really good, but in my opinion, it's a fix for people who have the ability of those things that are right in front of them to never get them in trouble. But, again, this goes back to the exhaustion I have on that point. Yeah. We've had numerous opportunities for people to see the light of like physical resilience and their own power that they have for that. And we've shown no positive signs of people falling in love with seeing that internal power that they have of resilience through their own physical practices and stuff. So I don't have any hope that it's going to go in that direction.
Well, I actually want to go to CrossFit, but I got to ask one more question. And that is, how do we change the culture then? Or the mindset, maybe is a better word, of what you just described? I mean, how do we do that?
I think we gotta, it's probably slightly no different than what I said earlier with regards to what I propose as a beacon and also make things simple. But I think really it starts with each of us. All of us need to heal ourselves first. And I just use the term heal ourselves, but really that's what I went through. So I think that's where it needs to start. Like, we need to sit and contemplate with our own whys, right? Like WHYS apostrophe S. No, it's just S. Anyways, we need to sit with our own whys and say, now why do I think I need to do that? Like, am I being honest with myself that I'm doing it for those intentions? And if it starts there, I think you can get a host of individuals who, and I'm not going to say a majority because I'm lying if I said that, a host of individuals who will, quote unquote, wake up. They'll wake up and go, wow, this stuff is free. It's right in front of me. There's lots of fun inside of it. There's lots of discovery and creativity. And I need to start pushing that out to make sure people see this is simple. It's not complex, because a lot more people can get a taste of it. And then, of course, if that person understands it, as you know, John, when you meet those people, they are convicted that you can smell, right? You can smell it off them. So that if I'm convicted and I truly believe, then when I speak to someone about it, they may think either I'm crazy or at least there's something going on there, right? But if I really don't believe, but I put on the act that I do, which is 95% of all fitness professionals out there, we will not change culture because we didn't fix our own stuff inside ourselves. So I really do think that there is a right way. It's a simple way. And the process of starting to change the culture, starts with each one of us.
I love it. Two thoughts hit me. I know you're like philosophy. It's so simple. Gandhi, be the change you want to be in the world. I
saw that in your book. That's a great quote.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what I heard you say, be that beacon of light. Hey, as far as the CrossFit, I know that was a long time back in your world. It is impressive though. Okay. So what the hell, give me the background. How did you become the first champion of CrossFit in 2007? And what was that like?
Yeah, well, it was a lot of luck because it was just the worlds colliding of me taking interest in doing the workouts online. And then they just decided at, luckily enough, the point in my career inside of CrossFit where I was some of the better people that were participating, they decided to have a live competition. And so it just makes sense that, if you look around over the years prior and be like, we should get all the people that are doing all this competition online and get them together and do a competition. I'm probably going to end up in the top 3 or 5 at least. And the way the workouts came out, as you know, in the sport, they're varied. And for that weekend, as to what came out and how the points were tabulated and who were there, I came out on top. So it's nothing more grandiose than that. A whole ton of luck and the right timing.
What is what's the essence though, for people who don't know CrossFit? What is the essence of that as fitness? So, back to your 2 pillars, right? But
yeah, well, CrossFit is a sport. It's not fitness. So anyone who doesn't know my history or my history in the background, that may also either raise cackles on the back of your neck, or it also may make you scratch your head. But CrossFit is a sport paradigm offering, and so they want to be. And I'm not going to say that I'm speaking for them, but they would love it to be fitness and own everything in fitness. But what's really inside of the practice and the methodology is a sport paradigm. It's a performance-based paradigm. OPEX is, if you're not aware, is a vitality model. It's a vitality paradigm. Our whole focus in all of our practices is to ensure people participate in fitness forever. That is the complete opposite of the aforementioned company that wants to say that it catches all fish and fixes everything. The actual aspect is that it's a short-term solution for some intense activity. Basically what it is. That's a very reductionist language, but that's my true opinion in terms of where it sits for it. So I want to be super clear on that in my opinion, it was a sport for me, right? Like, and a sport is different. A sport's intentions is pleasure, pain, points, and prizes. There you like 4 more P's.
I like it. Yeah, the 4
but
more
that's
Ps.
the intentions of sport, right?
Yeah.
And the vitality model is nowhere near those intentions.
Okay.
The vitality model doesn't give a shit about any of that stuff, right? The vitality model cares about those other beacons I was telling you, principles of consistency, right? So if you really believe in consistency, show me the data that people are in these intense gyms for 50 years. They're not.
Right.
No, they get burnt out by 3 or 4 years, or they just, somehow find something else. So that makes your program a poor program for the concept of health and longevity.
Right.
But they should just own it, right? And they don't, because they, of course, with good intentions, they want to wrap their arms around everything and fix it all, but not going to fix it with an intense, unsustainable model, because unsustainable practices lead to unsustainable behaviors.
Keep going on that.
No, it's period.
Okay. All right.
Period.
All right. I'll have to figure it out. And so will the audience. What are those unsustainable behaviors for each of us, right? Because they're different. Yeah. Okay.
Well, all of those, just imagine all those physical practices that people do. The whole intention is to do unsustainable work, right, and to learn about it. So how does a human system keep up with an unsustainable project? It has to use adrenaline. It has to use arousal. It has to use sensationalism, body objectification as extrinsic motivations. You see where I'm going, right? It gets ugly. It gets ugly. So you can only sustain that over a period of time wherein all resources are done.
Right.
Right. I'll try to give it to you in your terms. I remember mentioning in there that you would fly 4 to 5 times a week or compete at those levels 4 or 5. If I'm not correct, just imagine doing it 12 times to 20 times a week. right? So you're like, oh, well, that would never happen because our brains couldn't handle it and it's just way too much, and et cetera. Okay, well, then I'll say 30, right? But my whole point is that there will come a time where you can only duct tape that so long.
Yeah.
Where, John, you could never provide enough heroin or speed or Red Bull to keep you focused when you're going at that speed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there's constraints, right? And there's constraints physically that we need to honor. And that's what I mean by this whole facade of people thinking they get inside of this intense model and they're only in there for a couple of years because it's basically just a scare tactic for 2 to 3 years. So that's what I mean by the performance paradigm model is everything that's high intensity, is short-term solutions for sensationalism or the attention economy. And we're the opposite end. We're way over here saying, whoa, 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 we want to do this for 80 years. And as you know, if you're not aware, to propose an 80-year project is boring as hell and you can't sell it. So there we go. That's where we end up.
There you go. Hey, you know what made me think about something real quick was this idea if two axes, I'm just going to draw it, your typical XY axis. And if you were to say a typical life, longevity, vitality, yeah, go ahead, do it.
Yeah, it's I put it into 3 phases. It's called growing, peaking, and resisting entropy.
Nice.
Formative growth years, right? Maximum potential is like this. It's all start, talk to a 15-year-old, right? They're unbeatable, right? Like no fear, I could do this, right? Like you did when you were looking up into the sky at that, that plane flying by.
You really did read the book.
I'm going to do that. But just think about that. Right? You have no business saying something like that, but you actually thought it was real.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So your prefrontal cortex is half baked by that period of time, right? So you're growing. And then I'll just put it into language of timelines, sequences. It does follow suit with biological truths, right? So from 20 to, let's call it 45 to 50, life is grandiose. In most cases, you have so many things to do. Your brain is fully formed. You're experiencing all these physical things. Reproductive capacity is maximized where you can produce other humans, which is fucking crazy, right? Think about that. So, but then at that point in time, 45 to 85, it doesn't continue to go up, right? It doesn't continue up, and it doesn't go like this. This is the well-accepted notion. It's downhill, like the classic cultural tropes that are thrown inside of that, right? It's all downhill from here. My point is, you're both wrong. It doesn't continue to go up. It certainly doesn't flatline. You don't maintain all of the shit that you learned and all your capabilities when you were 35. You could speak to that. I could speak to that, right? So what happens is that you try to just hold on for dear life for as long as possible, recognizing the anguish that you're going to feel with this lack of physical production improvement. Remember, like you could speak to it as well as others that are, let's call it 45 or plus, there's this spiritual or psychological opportunity now for more growth, in my opinion. Now, it's fascinating how humans only have had, on a majority, 150 years of practice of this time period. So we actually haven't done a really good job yet of saying, this is how you live from 50 to 85. But I'm just giving the pretense to someone who's like, well, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do from 50 to 85. There is so much spiritual and emotional and cognitive growth that could go while you are holding on to as much physical capability as possible. This is called resisting entropy on the back end.
Yeah, and I would say that's so cool. The entropy acknowledge, because that's a law of the universe. Things do break down.
And right? we're not going to miss out on that. I mean, that's a part of our processing.
But I like what you say is, can you slow it down? Yeah. Can you slow down the rate of entropy back to your initial point so that as you are aging, you're not giving up your quality of life. In fact, and then what I really like what you did was, and I feel you don't have to wait till you're 45, but it seems like we do or later, to really realize that the spiritual growth, our capacity to grow in other ways besides physical, is really it's
immense.
Yeah.
right? We can't even put language to it, right? We don't even know how to say it. It's just like, I don't know. It's just a lot, you know? Yeah, it's a lot, but it should make sense, right? Because our physical resources, we're not going to reproduce anymore. And we can't actually like pull 20 people out of a burning building. And whether you think you can or you can't, it doesn't matter. Majority of people will not at 60, right? Society's like not like that. Civilization's not like that anymore. So the quote unquote elder, wise, sage is what is so superior in regards to cognitive function and wisdom and the ability to like see these big complex things and make them simple. Yeah. Right. That's the tie-in of the whole thing here is the teaching and giving back and making sure we simplify it. So another point, I don't want to turn it into, again, a dystopic concept of that, but there could be some younger listeners who are like keenly interested in another concept of there. This is also something for people to chew on. This whole thing that I drew out, that is based upon optimal expression for the whole time. So this is a key point that I'm starting to see happen with a whole ton of individuals between 25 and 35 years of age. And it means you are doing what's called an overreaching in the 25 to 35-year-old category. What this results in is people striving with all these resources and lots of piss and vinegar, and they just want to like crush life, right? And hustle. And honestly, in different terms, beat the shit out of themselves for 5 days a week, thinking it's like elite fitness. What ends up happening to this people for this resisting entropy, it actually slides down faster. Wow. This is a really sad undertaking that it's going to take a long period of time and enough brave souls at the end of this whole psychological experiment of intense fitness. We're going to have to wait 10 to 15 years before all that generation goes, listen, don't do that crazy shit for 25 to 35 years of age, because it ages you way too quickly. And a lot of people will become conscious enough to recognize and look back and say, I pretty much should have backed off a tiny bit on that expression to lead to like what would be considered an admirable, slow, journey down where you're at 83, cognition high, function high, and contentment is high.
Wow. Wow, James, this has been incredible. I want to wrap this, but first off, this has been one of the deepest conversations I've had in this regard, and the depth of your knowledge. I want to add a piece to it. Maybe you've already done this, but it's why we're wearing these shirts, glad to be here, is where does the idea of gratitude, appreciation, awareness, it's glad to be here in my mind, the brand that I'm trying to build is it's much more than appreciation and gratitude. It actually combines everything we've been talking about, this idea of excellence, this idea of achievement, this idea of a path, simplification, but with the appreciation and the presence of the spiritual side too, spiritual side of the word. But where does that fit in your training or just what we just talked about? Where does glad to be here fit?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I guess you would have to extract a lot of my language to see that it's in my deepest intentions of why people should move, right? Remember what I said, move because you can, and move because it's for you. So the whole like move because you can is very simple, but that's what I'm talking about. It is innate and it's in you. It's in you and it's right in front of you. And now you can fill in the gaps. Be grateful that you have this capability, right? So that's where you can read between the lines on that. Outside of it, I teach coaches about that idea. Indirectly inside of my education, it was always, and John, it's good you asked this again, because I said I was going to contemplate this a whole lot more the last time I was asked it, but I don't know where this comes from. So I do need to spend more time on it. But when I started coaching, no one told me, but I made up my own mantra that before every consultation, I said, I am grateful that they were willing to take the opportunity to come and learn, and that every person who will step in front of me, regardless, has good in them. I didn't read a book on that. I had no religious upbringing. I was probably surrounded by a number of people. It just bled, right? But I just said, every time I come to a consultation, that's what I'm going to start with. And I didn't even mention it, but that's how I came into it. And I truly do believe that then people smelled that. And then it just led to like, okay, I can open up, we can create these channels of awareness, etc. Secondly, it's actually in text form of these attributes that I want all of my coaches who graduate to have. And some of those attributes are awareness, attentiveness, empathy, trustworthy, and vulnerability. So the awareness aspect is an obvious, second nature piece to gratitude and just being happy, so I shouldn't say that, being content that you're here.
Wow. I'm glad it all came full circle, because as you,
thanks for asking.
What's that?
Thanks for asking, because I was dying to know how it was going to tie in, but as I was talking it out, I got to see that the language is similar, but just coming about it a different way.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so beautiful. And I love that what you stressed to me today, and hopefully all our listeners, is that it's already inside of us. No one has to teach us this, right? Fitness, gratitude, mindset, we got it. We all have it.
It's there.
It does help to have someone of your expertise who has mapped it out, who has made it, teachable for others. But at the end of the day, it's inside of us. And, and I think that's what's beautiful.
Yeah. It starts with language, right? That's it. It's like, you got to put a name to it. You got to say it. And if people hear it, then maybe they'll chew on it now on a walk while they're listening to the podcast. And I hope that I've given you some, I hope I've given you and your listeners, I really do hope that I've given them something to chew on. And if one person leaves with a newfound sense of freedom, then I'm happy. I'll sleep at night.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to give you one chance to leave us with, I know you must have certain mantras or sayings or live withs in your life. So can you share one or two that I can chew on, live withs that you live by every single day?
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of them. That's largely based upon fitness. And I just want to, for shits and giggles, say it's something more than move because you can and move because it's for you. I'll use get comfortable with uncomfortable.
Nice.
That's just another way of saying the concept of being vulnerable and not being afraid of tripping up. That's where we learn. That's where we learn everything.
That's it. Get comfortable with the
uncomfortable. And it's key for today, because I think the culture doesn't number one, allow a lot of tripping up, and number two, we do a really poor job of forgiveness, both for ourselves and for others. And so what you're going to get with that is a lot of people scared shitless to trip up. And so that's why I would say the get comfortable with uncomfortable may make you, be brave.
James, I want to end on my side, and then you get the last word with a glad to be here statement. And that's, I'm so grateful for you being here with us today. I'm really grateful that we were present and that we both showed up. Your awareness is amazing, and your intention of coming to this with goodness is so obvious. And so I am so grateful for this moment together. Thank you for being on the podcast. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, John. The last word. I had, honestly, no expectations coming in. I had a T-shirt that I had to put on, and I had a book to read. But I got to tell you that with those no expectations, whether you care or Sugar cares or any of your listeners care, I learned a lot. Sometimes it's great to learn from the questions that come from other people that see things in different ways. And so I'm appreciative of the questions that were asked and giving me the opportunity to continue to heal myself with this forward momentum for fitness.
All right. Blessing, James. Thanks for that. You're doing amazing work out in the world. We'll make sure the show notes has ways to contact you, OPEX, all that things. We want, this to spread. So cool. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.